Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MVP podcast. Believe it or not, it's only our second one. And what are we talking about today? We're talking about Arsenal Football Club. Is it their year? Is Arteta going to deliver the Premier League? Well, let me first start with a disclaimer, because my panel is of interest. There are no Arsenal fans here. Most of you who know me from SuperSport in my days there will know that I am a long-suffering Tottenham fan. And people often say to me, don't you hate Arsenal? And I say, actually, no, I actually don't. For whatever reasons, the side that I dislike is Manchester United. And that's where I'm going to start, because our very good friend Yvette is, like me, maybe not a long-suffering, but a long-suffering Manchester United fan. Yvette, welcome. Another tough season for you. And like me, out of the FA Cup as well. Gee, it's hard being a United fan.
It is a roller coaster ride. We are sitting coachless right now. We heard that there are talks about bringing in Mikel Arteta as the coach, but we also heard that the team is in talks with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I'm not sure that Solskjaer would be a good fit for the team. I mean,
Ollie's at the wheel. Ollie's at the wheel.
Thinking about Ollie's last game as a Manchester United manager, it was absolutely terrible. Booing coming in from the crowd as well. But looking at Mikel Arteta, I think he would be a great fit. I mean, we saw what he did at Middlesbrough. He lifted the team from almost relegation to bringing them almost to out of the bottom half of the relegation zone.
Yvette, it's an Arsenal podcast, so it sounds like it's a Manchester United podcast at the moment. We'll get to that in a moment. But very quickly, it would be remiss of me to say, I don't know what's the problem with United, as I don't know with Spurs, because I honestly thought Darren Fletcher was a good pick. He was a natural pick. But even in those two short games, it hasn't exactly fallen for him either. So maybe the problems, like many other clubs in the Premier League, mine included, the problems are deeper.
The problems are way deeper than the coach right now. They could bring in the best of the best. We've had the likes of Mourinho at the forefront and still nothing changed. So it's a deep clean that needs to happen at Manchester United. And I think it's going to take about 3 or 4 more years for us to really bring back those glory days. But if we start early, we might see the return of United. Not anytime soon, I might add, but if they start now, we might see some changes.
I'm going to get Ray to discuss it now, but you're talking about deep clean. I don't want to be too controversial here, but from a Spurs supporter, when I hear deep clean, I think of an enema. That's actually how bad Spurs are. But my point is, I'm Spurs. Yvette is Manchester United, and you're not going to get you're going to get a neutral opinion because Ray is that kind of a broadcaster, but you're a Chelsea man.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, but like me, you don't hate Arsenal.
No, I don't. I think I'm obviously a Chelsea fan. I have a slight Chelsea favorite, but it's not overwhelming just watching football from a neutral point of view.
Well, I must compliment both of you. I mean, I've worked a lot with you during our talent search and since then on the playbook, and both of you, and I like to think I'm the same way, is that even though we might support other clubs, when we are broadcasting, we are neutral and we point to the facts, which is why I'm going to get straight into it and ask Ray. The signs are, I have to say, without bad-lucking Arsenal, that everything is in place. They look a unit. They've got Gyökeres up front. There's some criticism even from Arsenal fans about how effective he's been. But the squad looks deeper. Is it their year?
I think it is. I think it is for a variety of reasons. One, they're very good. I think we have to say that without any sort of bias or fear. They actually are. They're the most consistent team in the league. They've dropped the fewest points. There's a reason why they're top, and they're looking as dominant as they are. The second thing is the rest of the league keeps slipping up.
Yeah.
There's Man City, who look like they're on a good run, and then they slip up and drop a few points, get a couple of draws back to back. There's the teams behind them who are inconsistent. There's Aston Villa, who we're still not quite sure about. I think, broadly speaking, the stars have perfectly aligned for Arsenal.
Yeah.
This is as good a chance as they'll have for a while, because I don't think any of the big 6 teams will be as bad as they are this season next time around.
I'm going to come back because I like what you said there about they're good, and I want to analyse that and break that down a little bit. But again, something that triggered me there, my own theory, which I don't think I've shared on air, but I'm going to share it now, and just briefly going away from Arsenal to talk about Liverpool and their title defence, which has been horrendous. Let's be honest. Let's call it like it is. It's been bitterly disappointing. And with Sean Bartlett and Bongani Kamalo in the team, I've often spent a bit of time saying, what's gone wrong there with Liverpool this season? Is it the introduction of Isak that didn't go smoothly? Isak threw his toys out the cot, almost completely opposite to the way Semenyo has handled himself, which has been thoroughly professional. does it run deep? They had the sad, tragic passing of Jota. Then Mo Salah's like, I'm going out the door. Is it that? Or I would like to throw into the equation, see what you think about that, which Ray's point mentioned, that it looks primed for Arsenal this season. I look back at last season, and Liverpool were primed to win that because Manchester City had dropped off completely. Your Manchester United were nowhere. Spurs never, ever anywhere. Chelsea were in a rebuilding phase. There was no Aston Villa. So to me, if I look back at last year, Liverpool were brilliant, but they really had no opposition in the Premier League. And this season, to me, looks a lot more competitive. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely a bit of both. We're seeing that City is doing really well.
Much better.
We're seeing Arsenal is at the forefront of everything. So they've definitely got a lot of competition, but also the team is not gelling. As you mentioned with Mo Salah, there's a little bit of nitty-gritty in every part of the team where there's this happening and then there's this happening. We saw it, I think, 2019 Barcelona as well, where the team was starting to practically fall apart. So Liverpool came in with that mentality that they could do possibly maybe the bare minimum and try and still make it. But Arsenal, this time, their team, like Ray said, they are a strong unit. And if you look across positions, even if you have an injury here or there, they've got someone who can
They've
come
got
in
depth
and
now.
they've got depth that someone can definitely come in and cover that space.
Well, they have, but we all know, and I've been saying this on Champions League for a while, is that the title is never won in November, December. We're now in January, but really and truly, you've got to get across that finishing line. And for those clubs, let's go back to talk about Arsenal, is that they have to fight on multiple fronts.
Yep.
On Wednesday night, they played Chelsea in the League Cup, but they've got FA Cup commitments and, importantly, Champions League commitments.
Yeah.
So you need so much depth, and it can quickly go pear-shaped. So if you Arsenal, how do you prevent that? Do you think they still need to bolster their squad going forward?
It's tricky. I don't think they need to do a lot. I think they've got 8 defenders who are of really good quality.
Yeah.
People were saying Arsenal's second team could probably finish in the top 5 in the Premier League.
Yeah.
That's how good their squad is right now. I think the one thing that Arteta in particular has to guard against is complacency and little silly errors, which have minimized anyway because they're the best defensive team in the league, if not one of the best in Europe.
Yeah.
So the only thing that could stop Arsenal from doing well is Arsenal. In the Champions League, they've done most of the hard work. I think they're nigh on guaranteed to qualify for the next
Yeah, I
stages.
think they are.
So all they have to do now, the Carabao Cup first leg has already happened against Chelsea. If they continue from their momentum from there, I think they can do a lot. I don't think they expect to win all 4 trophies. They'll try and be in for all of them.
Well, that's the problem. And for Arsenal last season, because they were in this position last year.
Yeah.
Okay, they weren't quite as dominant last year. But at one stage, they had Liverpool on the ropes, and then they fell away. And I feel, and the problem is, and it's not necessarily Arsenal, but any team can be running in all 4 competitions. Now you're heading into February, March, and then suddenly, bing, bing, bing,
Yeah.
gone in the space of 3 weeks out of everything. So coming back to that point, does Arteta say, we'd love to win the Champions League, we'd love to win the FA Cup, but damn it, we're going to focus everything on the Premier League because that's what we need to do to make sure that at least we tick that box.
Yeah.
Because that's what the fans want, right?
Yes.
They want the Premier League.
22 long years
Yeah.
for Arsenal fans. They've watched
Could be
Chelsea
322 like Spurs or something. Lost calculations.
Yeah, no, they're on. I hope it's not that bad for Spurs anymore.
Listen, I have to
Honestly,
quickly say, by the way, before Spurs says, oh, you'd keep dissing us, Tottenham have actually won a cup more recently than...
See?
But we did beat that other football team of hers over there. That, by the way, was the... I said to you when we were doing a podcast earlier on this week, I said, I've been around the block a bit. I've seen a few FA Cup finals and I've seen a few tournaments and stuff. That was the worst cup final I've ever seen. Manchester United versus Tottenham. I suspect the 3 of us and 8 friends actually could have got a draw against either one. It was a bad cup final.
Yep.
But I want to come back. Let's break down Arsenal. And the defence is the place to start. They have been tremendous. Gabriel Saliba, and you got pace on both sides, attacking place, the Julian Timbers of this world, and Raya in goals. That's their big strength, isn't it? They don't give away much.
Absolutely. They're not giving away much, and they're dropping less easy points when they go up against teams. You know, Arsenal is just playing football that they haven't played in a couple of years. But again, going back to the point that you and Ray made earlier on, we see them in these final stages where they're almost there. It's almost sure that they're going to take it, and then suddenly they kind of just slip away. So I don't know what Arteta's going to do in the change rooms to make sure that the boys don't lose focus. But I think it would be nice for them to just kind of draw their attention towards one particular trophy where they know for a fact that whatever happens here, we have to make sure we bring it home.
But it's so difficult to do, and the temptation is clearly from Arteta's point of view now, Ray, is that, as you say, Champions League is going to be no problem. So the temptation, I mean, you can't rock up in the knockout phases of Champions League and say, I'm going to rest Rice now, and I'm going to rest Saliba and Gabriel.
Manchester with Luke Shaw.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to you've got to play, and that the problem is football is now played at such a high speed and so frequently. In England particularly, I think, we've come through such a busy period now. I think you've got 6 competitive games in 17. That's where the injuries come.
Yeah.
So, God forbid, but if a Declan Rice, for example, picks up an injury, if Saka picks up an injury, that is where it becomes difficult, because they're not a one-man team by any stretch of the imagination, but they're an integral part of that team.
Yeah.
So I just wonder how, and this isn't for Arsenal, it's any football club, how do you, it's PSG, who, by the way, were knocked out, well, they lost 2-1 to Paris FC earlier on this week, so it shows you nobody's not vulnerable, is how do you keep a squad happy, keep them ticking over? It's not easy.
It can't be, and that's going to be the test of Arteta's management in this last stage. He has never won a league title as a manager. He's only won an FA Cup. That's his only trophy as a manager. So even for him, it'll be uncharted territory to say, boys, let's try and get over the line. Let's focus. Let's get these results. But I think key to all of this will be how he rotates the team. He can rotate a Madueke for Saka for some Champions League games. He can rotate Trossard and Martinelli. He can rotate Gyökeres or Merino, or even the returning Havertz now, who's approaching fitness, or Jesus for that matter. So there's the key of rotation. Obviously, the fullback position is secure. They've got Luis Kelly, they've got Nkapio can play there, they've got Calafiori, Timber on the other side, Ben White. They've got a lot of players who can do a similar job. I think he's got the right profiles in the squad to be able to manage each competition separately. I think there's, as we saw in the FA Cup, he rotated a lot of players, but they still got the result against Portsmouth. They're going to keep rotating players to see what the best balance is for each individual game. I think they do game by game as opposed to competition by competition now.
Okay, now I'm going to leap forward. I'm going to speak with my Gunners fan hat on now. Yes, you say they're going to get the Premier League, they're going to get the job done. And I think you're probably right, because we can touch on that. The opposition are falling away. Even City were moving dangerously, and now they haven't won a few games and they're gifting a few points. Can Arsenal win multiple titles? Can the FA Cup be within their grasp? Can they famously follow your great Manchester United team and actually win the Champions League as well, Ray?
Short answer, they can, but I don't think they will. The only reason for that is that I think they're going to be so zeroed in on Premier League and Champions League. That's going to be the big thing. They've never won a Champions League. They haven't won the Premier League in 2 decades plus now. I think the biggest thing will be, let's focus on the Prem, and then if we can get a League Cup, which they're in the semi-finals of, if they can get an FA Cup, that would be great. I think they'll say primarily Premier League, Champions League.
United did the famous treble, didn't they? And in the very last minute, I want to apologise to Sammy Kaffour, who might be watching, as Sammy always bursts into tears and says, no, Neil, don't talk about it. Because we remember that famous banging the ground when they conceded. The big difference, I think Ray's probably right, the big difference, and you'll testify to this, is that the competition for Arsenal in the Premier League is not delivering, apart from Aston Villa, who are punching above their weight. But that's not the same in Europe, is it? Because you've got, well, where do you want to start? You've got Inter Milan, you've got Barcelona, you've got Real Madrid, the list is endless. And I suspect that they won't be rolling over like the Tottenhams of this world in the Premier League. So it will be tough, but not impossible.
Absolutely not impossible. I mean, just again, with Arteta and the current Arsenal squad, they all have a joint vision and a joint goal. There's mutual respect between manager and players, as opposed to what we're seeing happening now with Madrid, where there are talks of the players' ill discipline and respect towards the coach not being there, Xabi Alonso not being able to discipline his squad, and that translates into the field of play. We saw that happening in the past game against Barcelona. So I definitely think Arsenal is in a position where they're a solid squad. They have a mutual goal. There's respect there, and it's translating into the football that they're playing. It's disarray at Manchester United right now, where we heard the cries of the coach who just left, and he said, "I came in to be the manager, but I'm not getting the control that I deserve." And we can only just, sit back and wait and see what's going to happen next at Madrid. What's going to happen next at United?
I'm going to share a philosophy. It's a Neil Andrews, not philosophy, a theory. And that is that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that Manchester United and Spurs are in, and to a lesser extent a side like Villa. But let's say Ray is my next champion, he's my next Ronaldo or Messi. I've identified him, he's 21, he's 22, and I'm trying to bring him to my club, right? The problem is that if I'm Spurs, Ray's agent, which is you, Yvette, is saying, "Ray, don't go to Tottenham." Why would you want to go to Tottenham? You wouldn't want to go to Tottenham. You wouldn't want to go to Manchester United. There's only 3 options really for you, or 2 options really, or 3, maybe if you're getting a good salary at Chelsea. But your agent, of all the good players, is trying to get you in at Liverpool. He's trying to get you in at Arsenal. You don't really want to go to Manchester United and Spurs. And I find that that's the problem with Spurs, is that we're not getting the best of the best. There was a time we had Gareth Bale and Modric playing for us. Now, with all due respect, I won't mention names, but we're not getting the cream of the crop. So I think Manchester United's problems are not a quick fix. I mean, I look at some of their players. I mean, pass the mic to Yvette, because I'm going to ask her a tough question now. Of your squad, who would make a Premier League 11?
Bruno Fernandes.
Correct.
But also, I don't see him staying at the team for very long.
And maybe I'm not so sure he'd step straight into the squad. You'd have to say, well, who's not going to be there? But he's probably the only candidate. You're certainly not going to get any. And if I look at my Spurs team, I don't think anybody gets a look in. Maybe Van der Ven at his best, because he's quick. But that's the problem. So let's talk about Arsenal. So we're saying you think Arsenal will win the Premier League?
I think they've got a very good shot. We've seen them in the past edge very close, but then buckle towards the end. So if they can get over that, where they somehow that mentality where they're so close, but then they fall off. If they can get over that, they're definitely taking it. 100%.
I agree with you, and Ray has said as much as problems. Let me twist a little bit, play devil's advocate. What would prevent them? What could happen to make to allow Manchester City, or dare I say Aston Villa or Chelsea, to come on an unbeaten run of many games under their new coach? Where could Arsenal lose it?
In injuries, and even that I don't think would be too much of a deterrent, because I think the collective is just so strong.
So good. So you're quite confident they'll get the job done?
Yeah, I think they will. The same way Liverpool were kind of cruising towards the end. I think they'll be able to do that in the Premier League, only because the competition is not as intense, and they've got such a good squad that they can rotate easily across multiple games. If they play 3 in a week, they can play 2.5 different lineups and still be able to get 7 points out of 9, for example. And I think other teams, City could win 1, lose 1, and draw 1.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, really. The only thing, like I said earlier, that could trip them up is their own mentality. If they don't think they're good enough to win the league, then it will manifest itself that way. But I think now they believe.
Quick question for you, though, Ray. On the balance of play, should Arsenal not be a little bit further ahead than they are? Have they already not dropped a couple of points? I mean, we looked at the game with Liverpool the other day. Liverpool probably had the better of that second half, but a lot of my friends were talking about somebody, I think it was my good friend Andy Townsend, who said it was a good point for Arsenal. I'm not so sure it was a good point. The point is you want to win the Premier League. You're at home against an out-of-sorts Liverpool. You should be winning those 3 points.
That's the danger with them. Arsenal do not beat reigning champions. Liverpool got 4 points off of them, and this is Liverpool's worst season since their previous title defense under Klopp. So that's a bit of an issue. I want to see how they perform when they play against City at the Etihad.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be an interesting encounter as well. Those types of games where you're expected to go and put a marker down, make a statement and say, we're going to win this league. That Liverpool game was the perfect opportunity, and they still didn't win.
So Arsenal for you win. You all best manager by a considerable distance. Sir Alex Ferguson introduced this squeaky bum time, didn't he? He said, do you think, I mean, I agree with Ray, I think they'll get the job done, but What we're saying is there are still some potential squeaky bum times. If they get beaten by City and then they pick up 1 or 2 injuries, things in Champions League, it's not a fait accompli. They've got to make sure that they stay on top of themselves.
Absolutely. Again, it goes down to mentality. They've got a big fixture ahead. They've got a couple of games in different competitions, including the league as well. So if they can get it down to the mentality and just kind of focus, I mean, you can't win everything. If they can focus and pinpoint 1 or 2 trophies that they really want to go for and keep their focus on that, I see them doing very well. You've got teams like Manchester United who are playing the least games that they've played in like the past 100 years because they're out of everything, So Arsenal are at an advantage. Everyone else is not doing as well as they are. So if they can keep that mentality, they're going to go far.
Well, this is a podcast first because here you've got a Spurs, Chelsea and Manchester United supporter, myself included, saying that Arsenal are going to win the title. So any Arsenal fan out there, tell them to watch this podcast. They'll be pleasantly pleased that a United, Chelsea and Spurs fan are all saying that they get the job done. I hope Arteta gets the job because I think it gets it done, because if he doesn't, I think that management will say, listen, Sunshine, your process has run its course. They've really got to deliver this year. They're in a prime position. They've got to get the job done.
He's had 7 years to build this team.
Yeah.
He's had more than £500 million to spend on building this team. This is as strong as they'll be in the next few years. This is as weak as the rest of the league will be for a couple of years. So capitalize now and make sure that you can build a legacy, if possible, in the coming years. But you have to strike while the iron is hot.
Absolutely. Well said. Ray, wrapping it up for us there. This has been our MVP talking and asking the question, will Arsenal get the job done? Will Arteta win the Premier League? And the answer is a unanimous yes.